Oh, well, this is exciting. Earlier today, we're being told tourists and National Trust rangers saw the legendary fin disappear into a magical doorway within the rock face here at the Giant's Causeway.
Finn was one of the great characters in Irish mythology. Had a problem with a Scottish giant who lived 25 miles across the sea, so he decided he would go to Scotland.
Irish archaeologists finally opened the moving stone door, and what they found has not been made public. A 20-ton slab of solid basalt on the Antrim coast swung outward on its own, smooth and deliberate, like a door operated from the inside. It stayed open for 11 seconds. Then it sealed shut. No seam, no crack, no gap. When archaeologists scanned the rock behind it, they found a hidden chamber that should not exist. And inside that chamber, 7 figures, over 7 feet tall, standing upright in silent formation, facing the door. Every single one of them. When researchers returned 4 days later, one of the figures was gone. No exit found, no fracture, no trace of any kind.
Look!
The remaining 6 were still standing in the dark, warm, pulsing, and moving closer to the exit with every scan. This is the evidence the government tried to bury. This is what was found behind that door. The hidden secret. Ciaran Doyle is a 34-year-old electrician from Dublin. On a Tuesday evening last autumn, he drove up from the city for sunset footage of the basalt cliffs. Nothing more. Fly the drone, grab a few minutes, drive home. That's when he saw it. A section of the cliff face, a slab the size of a transit van, roughly 20 tons of solid volcanic rock, pushed outward, slowly, deliberately, like a door opening from the inside. Behind it, total darkness, smooth, almost mechanical. It stayed open for exactly 11 seconds. Then the stone returned to its original position with surgical precision. No crack, no gap, no seam. If you walked past that cliff 1 minute later, you would never know anything had happened. Doyle rewatched it 6 times in his car. He could see the shadow shifting behind the slab.
Earlier today, tourists, historians, geologists, architects and giant experts all congregated here and have been examining the rock face.
Something had been open back there. Something real. He uploaded the footage that night. By morning, his phone wasn't stopping. Geologists, journalists, university researchers, all demanding the same answer: real or faked. Here's the thing. One of those calls was about to change everything. If you want to know what happened when a senior geologist finally pointed a radar at that cliff face, and trust me, you do, make sure you're subscribed and have notifications on, because this is the part where the story stops being about a strange video and starts being about something that cannot be explained. The call came from Dr. Sarah Brennan, a senior geologist at Queen's University, Belfast, who has studied the Antrim basalt formations for over 15 years and published dozens of papers on volcanic rock structures across the North Atlantic. She is not someone who chases viral videos. When colleagues forwarded her the clip, she nearly dismissed it. Then she watched it a second time, then a third. She called Doyle directly and told him point blank. Either his footage broke every known rule of geology, or it was the most sophisticated hoax she'd ever seen. She drove to the site the next morning to find out which one. For anyone who doesn't know, the Giant's Causeway is a stretch of northern Irish coastline made up of roughly 40,000 interlocking hexagonal basalt columns.
These columns are found in a rock called basalt, which is a lava flow rock. But we can also find columns like this, Devil's Tower in Wyoming. We've even found columnar basalt on Mars.
The result of a volcanic eruption about 60 million years ago, when lava at over 2,000 degrees Fahrenheit cooled into eerily perfect geometric pillars. Scientists have studied this coastline for centuries. Geological surveys, ground-penetrating radar, deep core analysis. The entire site had been mapped and remapped. And get this. In all those centuries of study, not once had a single survey detected a hollow space inside these cliffs. No ancient text mentioned a hidden door. No legend even hinted at one. Dr. Brennan herself had scanned sections of that coastline dozens of times and found nothing but solid rock every single time, until Ciaran Doyle's drone caught something moving. What Dr. Brennan found. Dr. Brennan set up her ground-penetrating radar at the exact coordinates from Doyle's footage early the next morning. The weather was gray. The wind was cutting sideways off the Atlantic. She calibrated the sensors, aimed the antenna at the cliff, and waited for the image to render. What came up on her screen made her stop moving entirely. She stood there, eyes locked on the display, for nearly 2 full minutes without speaking. Her field assistant later said he thought the equipment had malfunctioned because she just wasn't reacting. She wasn't writing notes. She wasn't adjusting settings. She wasn't doing anything. She was just staring at what the radar had found inside what every geologist on Earth had always assumed was completely solid basalt.
Each of these is a column. We're up on top of them now. These cracks are 50 feet deep. With this beautiful pattern are found all through nature.
Here's what was in there. A hidden chamber, 12 feet deep, 26 feet wide. A sealed room inside volcanic rock with no entrance and no exit any instrument had ever detected. That alone should have been impossible. Basalt doesn't form hollow rooms. There is no geological mechanism. That creates a sealed chamber inside cooled lava, but what the scan showed inside that chamber is what made Brennan's field assistant think the machine had broken. 7 figures, standing upright in the dark, each one between 7 and 8 feet tall, positioned in a precise formation, spaced exactly 4.5 feet apart, and every single one of them was facing the stone door, not collapsed, not scattered, not fallen or fractured, standing in rows, perfectly upright, facing the way out, as if they had been waiting there since before the question of what to wait for had ever been asked. And get this, basalt doesn't form around standing objects. It's cooled lava, not sediment that builds up over centuries. The only way those figures could be inside that rock is if they were already in position when the lava was still liquid, still burning at over 2,000 degrees, sealed in that chamber since the eruption that created the Giant's Causeway, 60 million years ago. Humans wouldn't exist for another 59.7 million years. Whatever those 7 things are, they were standing in that formation before anything resembling a person had ever walked this planet.
The lava that was erupted very, very quickly, and the flows were very, very thick. Basically, if you picture, like wet mud on a hot day, the mud dries, and as it dries, it shrinks.
Dr. Brennan later said she stood at that radar screen so long because she kept waiting for the image to make sense. It never did. The next morning, a geophysicist named Dr. Ian Gallagher arrived from Belfast with more advanced scanning equipment. Gallagher specializes in subsurface imaging, reading what's buried beneath rock, soil, and ocean floor. He's mapped underground river systems across northern Europe and worked on deep crust surveys for the Irish government. He set up his equipment that morning the same calm, methodical way he had for 30 years of field work. 20 minutes later, his hands were shaking so badly he had to set his tablet down on a flat rock at the base of the cliff and step away from it. He walked in a small circle, rubbed the back of his neck, came back, looked at the screen, again, stepped away again. A colleague who was there said Gallagher didn't speak for almost 5 minutes. When he finally did, he said only, "Run it again." But here's what nobody expected. Gallagher's higher resolution scan revealed something Brennan's equipment hadn't detected. The 7 figures weren't solid stone. They were hollow shells, thin outer casings with empty interiors, like cocoons, like pods. Something had once been alive inside each one, or perhaps still was. The shell material itself defied identification. Whatever it was made of should not have survived contact with molten lava. Nothing organic withstands those temperatures. Nothing synthetic should either. Not for 60 million years, not under that pressure. Yet there they were, intact, structurally sound, sealed inside rock that had been liquid fire when the first mammals were learning to survive.
These columns formed from the base up. The cracks that formed these columns got established at the bottom, and the cracks crackled their way towards the middle of the flow up here. I'm at the middle of the lava flow, not the top.
Within 48 hours of Gallagher's scan, government agencies were quietly notified, encrypted emails, closed-door briefings, and the site Dr. Brennan had dedicated her career to studying was about to be taken away from her. The cover-up. An environmental agency team arrived and issued a public statement almost immediately. The drone footage was a trick of light reflecting off wet basalt. No chamber existed. No anomalies had been detected. The area was perfectly normal. Everyone could relax. Here's the deal. Their own lead consultant, Dr. Brennan herself, the person they had specifically contracted to verify the site, refused to sign that report. She was shown the draft statement and read it twice. Then she pushed it back across the table without picking up a pen. Colleagues on site say she reviewed the raw sonar data one final time on her laptop, went completely white, closed the screen, and submitted her resignation the following week. Her letter was 4 sentences long. The last one read, "I have seen enough." The agency moved fast, steel barriers around the entire section of cliff, bright yellow warning signs. Official reason, coastal erosion, falling rock hazard. If you asked a park ranger today, you'd get that same story without a pause. It's a clean cover. It works. But 2 members of Dr. Brennan's initial team had already resigned, and what they had seen inside that chamber had not gone away. And get this, the agency's cover story didn't account for what the sensors picked up 4 days later. Because before the team was ordered to clear the site, Dr. Brennan managed to return one more time. Standard scientific procedure, run a comparative scan, confirm the data, document any changes. She expected it to look identical. She was hoping it would. She wanted to believe the first scan had been a glitch. When the new image loaded on her screen, she grabbed the edge of the equipment case to steady herself. One of the figures was gone. Only 6 remained. The other 5 were still in formation, still upright, still facing the stone door. One position in the grid was simply empty. Gone, no dust, no debris, no displacement in the surrounding stone, nothing. Here's what makes that worse. The stone door had not opened, not once. Sharon Doyle, sensing the significance of what he'd recorded from the very beginning, had mounted a motion-activated camera aimed directly at the rock face the day after his original recording. It ran continuously, 24 hours a day for all 4 days. The footage showed 0 movement on the exterior, not a tremor, not a vibration. The door stayed sealed the entire time. Yet inside that locked chamber, one 7-foot figure had simply vanished. No crack, no tunnel, no secondary passage. The team checked every inch of the chamber walls on the scan. Nothing. It was as if it had passed through solid rock and disappeared into the earth itself. Now this is where it gets really unsettling. The remaining 6 didn't react. They didn't scatter or rearrange. They didn't shift away from the empty space where the 7th had been standing. They just kept standing there in the darkness, facing the door, as if the 7th leaving was expected, as if it was simply the first one to go. They are warm. Before the equipment was pulled, a thermal imaging specialist named Dr. Niamh Callahan arrived from University College Dublin. Her job? Check for volcanic heat sources or underground water that might explain anomalous readings. She'd done this dozens of times across Iceland and the Azores. She expected to find a hot spring, a magma pocket, something geological, something with a known explanation. It was a freezing March morning, air temperature 39 degrees Fahrenheit, the cliff face equally cold. She aimed her thermal camera at the chamber location and started the scan. The screen flooded orange and red. Inside that sealed room, the 6 remaining figures were radiating heat at 99 degrees Fahrenheit. Steady, constant, unmistakable. That is human body temperature, exactly. Here's the thing. There is no mechanism in geology or thermodynamics that explains how anything stays that warm inside cold stone. Not for a century, not for a decade. Heat dissipates, always. It radiates outward and fades. That is a fundamental law of physics. Anything warm, sealed inside freezing basalt, surrounded by Atlantic air, should have reached equilibrium with the surrounding rock in a matter of days. Not millions of years, days. Callahan recalibrated her equipment, swapped the batteries, repositioned the camera, ran the scan from 3 different angles, every time 99 degrees. She borrowed a second thermal unit from Gallagher's kit and ran the whole sequence again with different hardware. Same result. She asked her colleagues, dead serious, if they were running a prank on her. When she saw their faces, pale, nobody laughing, she understood they weren't. She packed her gear into her car without saying another word and didn't respond to a single email or phone call for 3 weeks. When she finally replied, it was one line. "I need more time to process what I saw. But the thermal readings weren't even the strangest part. The team had also installed vibration sensors along the rock face to listen for subsurface movement. And get this, what those sensors picked up might be the most disturbing detail in this entire story. A rhythmic pulse, repeating every 4.7 seconds. Consistent, steady, never varying. One of the senior researchers, choosing his words very carefully, admitted on record that the pattern was indistinguishable from a slow heartbeat. The thermal readings weren't stable either. They'd spike above 100 degrees with no external trigger, then settle back to 99. The fluctuations didn't match tides, weather, or any known geological cycle. The team ran correlations against barometric pressure, lunar phases, seismic activity across the North Atlantic. Nothing matched. Whatever was generating that heat was coming from inside those hollow shells. And every 72 hours, when the team ran a fresh scan, the situation got worse. The 6 remaining figures were changing positions. Not dramatically, a few inches at a time, barely perceptible between scans. But consistently, directionally, always moving the same way. They had clustered together and were shifting steadily toward the sealed stone door, like something waking from a very long sleep and deciding it was time to leave. The researchers overlaid the positional data from every 72-hour scan onto a single composite image. 6 data points, each closer to the exit than the last. When they saw the trajectory mapped out, nobody in that room said anything for a long time. Think about what that means. These things have been sealed inside volcanic rock since before mammals existed. They outlived every species, every civilization on the surface above them. For tens of millions of years, they didn't move. Patient, still. And now, right now, in our lifetime, they are heading for the door. Meanwhile, over 1 million tourists visit the Giant's Causeway every year. Families walk those black hexagonal stones with their children. They take photographs. They have no idea that 39 feet behind the rock they're leaning against, 6 entities are radiating body heat into cold stone and moving inch by inch toward a sealed door. But here's the deal. The story doesn't end with the cover-up, because Dr. Brennan didn't stop. The silence. Despite her resignation, Dr. Brennan spent months compiling everything: the thermal data, the heartbeat patterns, the positional shifts, the shell composition analysis, and submitted a formal peer-reviewed paper to Ireland's Geological Review Board. The board rejected it immediately. Faulty equipment, flawed methodology, insufficient evidence. Case closed. And get this, a colleague on that board called her afterward on a burner phone, off the record. The real reason had nothing to do with her science. Nobody wanted to deal with the chaos. If the public learned that biological heat signatures and rhythmic pulses had been detected inside ancient basalt, it would crack the foundation of everything we think we know about the history of life on Earth. Every textbook rewritten, every timeline shattered, every assumption about when intelligence first appeared on this planet thrown out the window. In April, all monitoring equipment was quietly removed. The researchers were told plainly, stay silent or your careers are finished. But they couldn't destroy all of it. Ciaran Doyle still has his original drone footage on 3 hard drives in separate locations across Dublin. He checks them weekly. He told a close friend he sleeps differently now, lighter, more alert, like something shifted the night he watched that stone move and never fully shifted back. Brennan, Gallagher, Callahan, and at least 2 other team members kept personal copies of everything: sonar data, thermal logs, vibration recordings, positional scans, all of it on encrypted drives. Here's the thing. The last scan before the equipment was pulled showed all 6 figures still moving, still pulsing, still warm. The one closest to the door was only a few feet from the stone face, its rhythmic pulse measurably stronger than the week before, getting louder, getting faster, as if something inside that hollow shell could sense how close it was to the way out. The question that keeps every one of these researchers awake at night isn't about the 6 that are still inside, it's about the one that already left. When they first scanned that chamber, there were 7 figures. Now there are 6. 1 is gone. No tunnel, no crack, no grain of displaced dust. It simply wasn't there anymore. And the remaining 6 didn't react, didn't scatter. They just kept moving toward the door, as if the 7th leaving was expected, as if it was simply the first one to go, as if they're waiting their turn. We've spent our entire existence believing we were the first intelligent things to walk this planet. These figures say otherwise. Something was here long before us, sealed in stone, radiating warmth, pulsing like a heartbeat, waiting in the dark while every civilization we ever built rose and collapsed on the surface above it. Dr. Brennan said something recently, off the record, to one of the few people she still trusts. She said, "We treat ancient history like something dead, something we dig up and put behind glass. But what if it isn't dead? What if it's just been sleeping? And what if it's finally waking up? Right now, that stone door is still there, cold, sealed, standing in the dark behind yellow warning signs and steel barriers on the Antrim coast. 39 feet of basalt between it and the tourists who walk past it every single day. And on the other side of that door, 6 figures are standing in the dark. Their heartbeats are getting stronger. Their heat signatures are climbing. They are inches from the exit. The door has opened before, 11 seconds. Smooth, deliberate, as if something on the other side knew exactly how to work it. It will open again. Do you think those 6 figures are still behind that door, or have more already gotten out? Tell me in the comments. And if you want to know the moment new evidence surfaces on this story, subscribe and turn on notifications, because this one is far from over.